Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with creators of Platonic on Apple TV Plus, Francesca Delbanco and Nicholas Stoller. Thanks for joining me today. This is such a fun series starring Byrne and Seth Rogen. Talk to me about the origin of it. How did you come up with this storyline and get this series rolling?
The idea for this series was originally my idea, and it really was a personal idea I had based on my own life, which is basically that a lot of my closest friends in my life were guys. And they were friends of mine from college, and they were friends of mine from my 20s. And I kind of found as I grew up and got married and became a mother, that the world had kind of reorganized itself so that I was less close to them than I had been once upon a time, and becoming closer to their wives and girlfriends. And that society seemed to kind of be sorting men and women into different sort of like social groups and categories, and that there would be things, like organized at school that were like dad's poker night or like mom's workout class or whatever it was. And I was sort of like, kind of caught up in it, but also unsure how it had happened and why the world had to have those sort of like social structures, and why it had become harder and weirder for me to just like go out with an old guy friend for dinner, or the kind of trip I could take on the weekend with a girlfriend, became sort of less and less possible. And so we just tried to set out to like explore that idea dramatically about men and women's friendships, and how they can be different than friendships that you have with people of the same gender, and how they can be important, and what they're like at the moment in these characters' lives and in our lives in your 40s and stuff.
It's interesting you pointed out that way as well because it does feel like a heterosexual issue. Like I know gay men in
Yes,
relationships
Yeah.
that have gay best friends and gay women that have gay best friends, but there's
absolutely.
something about men and women being best friends that is just there is something that's different about that.
That's right. I totally agree with you. And um it was just like for us to explore, why is it hard? Can it be done? And when it is done, what shape does it take? Like, does it somehow become problematic in your marriage? Does it not need to? Can everybody be cool with it?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And also that there's something very special about a platonic friendship, male-female friendship, that there is something like you get out of, if you're a man, there's something you get out of like a woman friend and vice versa. And that there is something kind of sad about saying goodbye to those friendships for literally no reason,
Yeah.
or reasons that we try to explore, in the show. And so that was another aspect to it.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship with Rose and Seth because Nick, I know they starred in your film The Neighbors, so there's a history there. But how did you get them to come on as the stars of this particular series? And then they also come on as executive producers.
Yeah, I mean, when we were kind of developing the show, we wanted to go to Rose from the get-go to play Sylvia. We didn't know if she would do it, but she's just such a genius and she's so funny. And so we approached her and we said, and she was into it. And then we said, who would you want? Who would be your ideal person to do this with? And she immediately said Seth. And at the time, I didn't know if he wanted to do TV or not, if he was just focused on producing and movies and whatnot. But we approached him and they love working together. And he instantly was like, yeah, I want to do it. And so they both, have acted for a while and I think they're at a stage in their career where they understand how like special it is to have another actor who you think is so funny and you have such good chemistry with. And so and they also trust us as creators and directors and writers. And so I think the combination of all of that led to the kind of the project coming together pretty quickly. And then Apple said yes, and then the pandemic hit.
But what I was going to say that
Cheers.
made, yeah,
Exactly. We were like, it's happening. Oh my God, it's all moving ahead.
right.
It's straight to series. Oh my God. And then boom, done.
Oh no, we're trapped in our house with our children.
Yeah.
One other thing I would say about it is that because Rose and Seth have known each other for years and have worked together for years and have a history and go way back, it really, we felt, was so great in the show. You could feel it. You could feel that they love each other. You could feel that they crack each other up. You could feel that they know each other. They didn't like meet on the first day of shooting. And that brought a real richness, we felt, to their kind of chemistry on screen, where it was like you knew these guys had hung out together a lot.
Yeah, they really legitimately make each other laugh, and a lot of the warmth of the show is them just laughing at each other on like while we're shooting. Like it's really cute, and it translates, to the show, their chemistry.
That diner scene for me was one of the funniest, where he's telling her where he needs to get punched, and then he's like, "That's my fart button." I mean, that scene had me cracking up.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's like you can really feel their history together. I feel like, scripted, but also just like those two people. It's
Yeah.
fun.
You two wrote the pilot together, I believe. And then Francesca, you write some of the episodes by yourself. Nick, you direct the series. And then you have other
You
people come
directed
in.
some too.
Yeah, I directed a bunch of them too, but
Okay. But you
mainly
have
no.
other people come in and write. What is that like to create a story and then you kind of have to trust other writers to come and continue it? I'm always curious about what that's like for you as a writer.
I mean, someone described the writer's room as a giant brain, and
Mm.
it's like an amazing thing to be able to have access to, because when you're hired as a writer on someone else's show, you're trying to contribute to their vision, and these are the writers we worked with, are writers we've known for years. We worked with them on our show Friends from College, which was on Netflix before, and some of them, and some of them we haven't, but we've known them for a long time, and they really get the tone and get what we're trying to do. And then everyone brings their own experiences to the stories and stuff. So it's a really great, like I'm also a screenwriter, and there's something really fun about being in a room and having all these people contributing all these ideas and all this, comedy and emotion to your vision. And then you take all the credit.
I mean, you need the help to
Yeah.
make 10 episodes of television that are fast-paced and funny and crazy, and you just need a lot of good people with great
Particularly,
imaginations. And in this show, we feel like every writer on our staff has their own experience with these kinds of friendships and has stories that have made their way into the scripts, and it's just kind of yeah, it is a gift to have incredibly smart people who you respect helping tell your story.
but for particularly, like, I think you can have you can do it yourself if it's not that funny. But our goal with this show was for it to be hysterical, and so the part of, you really do need a staff you need a bunch of really funny people to make that happen. You riff off each other and stuff, and so to make a show that's really funny, that you want people laughing out loud at home, that's like, you just need a staff, I think.
And of course, everything in every single one of these episodes is rewritten 100 times,
Yeah.
and is traded around the room, and people take their turn with it, and you take your turn with it, and generally speaking,
And the actors riff on set too. Like, it keeps, it goes through many iterations.
yes, generally speaking, the showrunners and creators have the last word because it's their show, but a lot of times these episodes are going through everybody's hands, and everybody's making them sort of like rich enough for them to be produced.
Well, that's one of the things I love about this series too, is we're in a time of television where it's become so expanded that the lines have really been blurred. I think on what's a comedy and what's a drama, and everything sort of like, I mean, we see things in our Emmy predictions and we're like, oh, that could be in the drama or the comedy category. This is going for laughs, unapologetically. I mean, and
Right.
it's funny. And so that was your goal, is like, this is like comedy.
Yeah, it's a comedy. It's a half-hour comedy. And I love comedy because it's a dramatic story. It's about getting older. It's about this sort of friendship that was so important, that's so hard to, it's not like goofy, it's like we're trying to tell this emotional story that is bittersweet and a little bit sad. Uh, but I always think, I am a comedy person. The best way to kind of tell an honest story or one of the best ways, is through comedy, because it goes down easy, you know, and it's like, you know, and it's I don't know, it's the way I don't know, we see the world a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say two things about it. One is that we are dealing with some inherently dramatic premises. Like we're working on season 2 right now, and there are some stories that are you could completely have in a drama. But we just feel like this is a comedy. So we have to figure out in every one of those scenes, this is a dramatic scene with two people who are upset about something and they have legitimate claims to be upset about it. But what is the comedic premise? Like what makes it a comedy? And then I would say the other thing is just like Rose and Seth are incredible actors and they can do anything that you bring them, but they are so good at comedy. It feels to us like it's a waste not to use it, you know? I mean, of course, we've all seen both of them in dramatic movies and they're just as good at drama, but not everybody is as good at comedy as they are. And so it's like, we've got them. We should give them as much funny stuff to do as we can possibly think of.
Yeah, I mean, Rose is essentially like Peter Sellers. Like she's so funny. She's like her
Physical,
physical
yeah.
comedy is amazing. Obviously, Seth's a genius. It's like, you know, but yeah.
And I'll admit, I went into this series with the preconceived notion. I was like, for sure by the end of this, they're gonna hook up. And you must have had people telling you that and expecting that. And I love that you didn't go there. Talk about that.
I mean, it was like, this is the premise of the show, and we're going to see it through. And, you know, in creatively for us and for the writers who help us write the show, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to make a whole series that doesn't have any romance or sex or
So
will they, won't
there's
they?
no sex and there's no murder, so it's hard to like crack stories.
We're like, what propels a drama is murder, and what propels a comedy is sex and romance. And it's like, once you take those elements out, we were always like, what is going to happen? But in a way, it was a really interesting challenge and continues to be one.
What was the biggest challenge for each of you wearing so many hats? Like, was there a particular scene or episode for each of you that was the most challenging to, let's say, direct or write?
Um, I mean, well, you directed
Yeah.
what I actually think is one of our best episodes, but I think there's just so much happened in it.
Yeah.
The
I was
arbitration
gonna say
episode.
for me in episode 105, which is like my wife's boyfriend, where Charlie and his crew of lawyer friends come back to Will's bar and the night goes crazy and they dance on the bar and then it turns into like a reveal that they've done ketamine. Those were scenes that had like 16 people who needed to be serviced in them and all this crazy physical stuff. And I found that challenging and intimidating before it started. And it was hard, but we were happy it came out the way we wanted it to.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, that in terms of writing, and this is just true of television in general, and when I ask around too, is the second episode is always the hardest. I don't know why. It's always the hardest episode. And we have an incredible writer, this writer Ron Weiner, who's written on like a million great shows, and he did a great job on it. But that's for whatever reason always the episode that like crumbles and we rebuild it 800 times. And so and I can't tell you why that is.
I mean, I think the reason why is that structurally in any series, once the story really gets moving, you have all of these different pieces to play with. But in the beginning, you don't have all the pieces yet. So
Yeah.
there's not really, it's like a story, a TV season ratchets along and the tension gets tighter and tighter and tighter. But in the beginning, you're kind of still just setting up the terms.
Yeah. But it was pretty smooth, honestly. It was not, and like Seth and Rose and the rest of the cast they're such pros, and I don't know, and we were given, not to like beat the right what.
I would say we did have a challenge towards the end in your episode where we had a crazy COVID outbreak on set.
There's COVID,
and
COVID,
like
COVID
a
challenges.
bajillion people in the cast and crew got COVID, and the machine had to keep moving, and we were both out. And Seth very gamely jumped in and directed for a day because he could. He's in the DGA, and it just that was crazy.
Yeah.
What drew you both to comedy? I mean, you both have such great history now in writing and directing, just film and TV. What makes you want to keep doing comedy?
I mean, comedy is I mean, I'll speak for myself. I see the world through a comedic lens. Like when something really dark happens or dramatic happens in my life that, you know, it's usually also kind of weird and funny. And when I see something on, when I see a movie, you know, my favorite movies and TV shows that I think are the most honest are funny also. That can be dramas. Like, so for example, The Sopranos is hysterical, but it is a drama, but it's also funny. And so I feel like the most honest things tend to be also funny. And so I couldn't really imagine writing just something that's just serious because I don't see the world that way, you know. So I think that that's ultimately why, you know, and I also like to laugh a lot. And, you know, in addition to that, I just like it more. But yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I agree with Nick that I mean, for me, the blend of serious and funny is really my sweet spot. I mean, I tend to not be a person who's drawn to like crazy broad over the top comedy because for me that's almost like genre in a certain way. But I love comedies that are emotional, that can talk about things in people's lives that are hard and also make you laugh at the same time. I'm like, that is the hardest magic trick to pull off. And it is, when it works, it's just very satisfying for me as a viewer. So,
Like a scene where you're laughing and then suddenly tearing up is like literally the goal of anything I've ever worked on.
or like a movie where at the end you feel really moved, but it's also undercutting itself and silly, and you know, it's just like that's when things really work for me, I think.
Yeah, like The Holdovers,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, or like,
Well,
you
and
know,
I have to say, just speaking of like your past work and maybe some things that got overlooked in my opinion more than they should have. I have to say one of my favorite scenes I've ever seen in a TV show that like I still think about to this day is Friends from College, the tennis scene with Michael Key and Fred Savage grunting. I think it's the funniest. It was the
Aw.
funniest thing I've ever, and I still reenact it. Like I still make fun of it. Please, like, just indulge me because, like, how did that come about?
It was in the script.
yeah, we just saw, yeah,
It was in the script, but I mean, obviously, two funnier people. Like, you couldn't have anyone better get that material.
yeah,
It was like a gift. I mean, it was written, but just seeing them do it.
yeah. And we just told them make a noise, make a weird noise, and then that's what they did.
It's one of my favorite TV moments ever.
Oh,
Aw,
thanks so
thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Platonic's returning for season two, so we're excited about that. Is there anything small that you can reveal? Obviously, we don't need spoilers, but how much time has passed since season one ep ended? Like, what are we entering a different phase of their lives?
We're figuring it out right now, so
Okay.
anything that we say right now might possibly be totally different by the time it's actually a TV show. But right now, it picks up not too far after it leaves off with, as is set up at the end of the season, Sylvia planning Will's wedding in San Diego.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of what we talked about is, you know, you know, not to give too much away, but they might have solved their like logistical issues. Like she started her job or whatever, and he's like settled down, but like they're still the same kind of messed up, insecure people, and so those things are still gonna bubble up into new problems over the course of the second season.
Well, we look forward to that. Congratulations on Platonic. It's a lot of fun. I love the premise, and we're looking forward to more. And good luck to both of you at the upcoming Emmys. I hope this gets some love.
Oh yeah,
Thank you
thanks so
so much.
much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your time. It was
Yeah,
really
thank
fun.
you.